Episode 82. A hot, prickly feeling of shame spread from the top of Harry's head all the way down his body. Dumbledore had not raised his voice. He did not even sound angry, but Harry would have preferred him to yell. This cold disappointment was worse than anything. "Sir," he said, a little desperately, "it isn't that I wasn't bothered or anything. I've just had other things." "Other things on your mind?" Dumbledore finished the sentence for him. "I see." Silence fell between them again. The most uncomfortable silence Harry had ever experienced with Dumbledore. It seemed to go on and on, punctuated only by the little grunting snores of the portrait of Armando Dippet over Dumbledore's head. Harry felt strangely diminished, as though he had shrunken a little since he had entered the room. When he could stand it no longer, he said, "Professor Dumbledore, I'm really sorry. I should have done more. I should have realized that you wouldn't have asked me to do it if it wasn't really important." "Thank you for saying that, Harry," said Dumbledore quietly. "May I hope, then, that you will give this matter higher priority from now on? There will be little point in our meeting after tonight unless we have that memory." "I'll do it, sir. I'll get it from him," he said earnestly. "Then we shall say no more about it just now," said Dumbledore more kindly, "but continue with our story where we left off. You remember where that was?" "Yes, sir," said Harry quickly. "Voldemort killed his father and his grandparents and made it look as though his Uncle Morphin did it. Then he went back to Hogwarts and he asked Professor Slughorn about Horcruxes," he mumbled shamefacedly. "Very good," said Dumbledore. "Now, you will remember, I hope, that I told you at the very outset of these meetings of ours that we would be entering the realms of guesswork and speculation?" "Yes, sir." "Thus far, as I hope you agree, I have shown you reasonably firm sources of fact for my deductions as to what Voldemort did until the age of 17. Harry nodded. "But now, Harry," said Dumbledore, "now things become murkier and stranger. If it was difficult to find evidence about the boy riddle, it has been almost impossible to find anyone prepared to reminisce about the man, Voldemort. In fact, I doubt whether there is a soul alive apart from himself who could give us a full account of his life since he left Hogwarts. However, I have two last memories that I would like to share with you." Dumbledore indicated the two little crystal bottles gleaming beside the pensieve. "I shall then be glad of your opinion as to whether the conclusions I have drawn from them seem likely." The idea that Dumbledore valued his opinion this highly made Harry feel even more deeply ashamed that he had failed in the task of retrieving the Horcrux memory, and he shifted guiltily in his seat as Dumbledore raised the first of the two bottles to the light and examined it. "I hope you are not tired of diving into other people's memories, for they are curious recollections, these two," he said. "This first one came from a very old house elf by the name of Hokey. Before we see what Hokey witnessed, I must quickly recount how Lord Voldemort left Hogwarts. He reached the 7th year of his schooling with, as you might have expected, top grades in every examination he had taken. All around him his classmates were deciding which jobs they were to pursue once they left Hogwarts. Nearly everybody expected spectacular things from Tom Riddle, prefect, head boy, winner of the award for special services to the school. I know that several teachers, Professor Slughorn amongst them, suggested that he join the Ministry of Magic, offered to set up appointments, put him in touch with useful contacts. He refused all offers. The next thing the staff knew, Voldemort was working at Borgin and Burke's. "At Borgin and Burke's?" Harry repeated, stunned. "At Borgin and Burke's," repeated Dumbledore calmly. "I think you will see what attractions the place held for him when you have entered Hokey's memory. But this was not Voldemort's first choice of job. Hardly anyone knew of it at the time. I was one of the few in whom the then headmaster confided. But Voldemort first approached Professor Dippet and asked whether he could remain at Hogwarts as a teacher." "He wanted to stay here? Why?" asked Harry, more amazed still. "I believe he had several reasons, though he confided none of them to Professor Dippet," said Dumbledore. "Firstly, and very importantly, Voldemort was, I believe, more attached to this school than he has ever been to a person. Hogwarts was where he had been happiest, the first and only place he felt at home." Harry felt slightly uncomfortable at these words, for this was exactly how he felt about Hogwarts too. "Secondly, the castle is a stronghold of ancient magic. Undoubtedly, Voldemort had penetrated many more of its secrets than most of the students who passed through this place, but he may have felt that there were still mysteries to unravel, stores of magic to tap. And thirdly, as a teacher, he would have had great power and influence over young witches and wizards. Perhaps he had gained the idea from Professor Slughorn, the teacher with whom he was on best terms, who had demonstrated how influential a role a teacher can play. I do not imagine for an instant that Voldemort envisaged spending the rest of his life at Hogwarts, but I do think that he saw it as a useful recruiting ground and a place where he might begin to build himself an army." "But he didn't get the job, sir?" "No, he did not. Professor Dibbet told him that he was too young at 18, but invited him to reapply in a few years, if he still wished to teach." "How did you feel about that, sir?" asked Harry hesitantly. "Deeply uneasy," said Dumbledore. "I had advised Armando against the appointment. I did not give the reasons I have given you, for Professor Dippet was very fond of Voldemort and convinced of his honesty. But I did not want Lord Voldemort back at this school, and especially not in a position of power." "Which job did he want, sir? What subject did he want to teach?" Somehow, Harry knew the answer even before Dumbledore gave it. Defense against the dark arts. It was being taught at the time by an old professor by the name of Galatea Merrythought, who had been at Hogwarts for nearly 50 years. So, Voldemort went off to Borgin and Burke's, and all the staff who had admired him said what a waste it was. A brilliant young wizard like that, working in a shop. However, Voldemort was no mere assistant. Polite and handsome and clever, he was soon given particular jobs of the type that only exist in a place like Borgin and Burke's, which specializes, as you know, Harry, in objects with unusual and powerful properties. Voldemort was sent to persuade people to part with their treasures for sale by the partners, and he was, by all accounts, unusually gifted at doing this. "I'll bet he was," said Harry, unable to contain himself. "Well, quite," said Dumbledore with a faint smile. "And now it is time to hear from Hokey the house elf, who worked for a very old, very rich witch by the name of Hepzibah Smith." Dumbledore tapped the bottle with his wand. The cork flew out, and he tipped the swirling memory into the pensieve, saying as he did so, "After you, Harry."